Hey, Justin, thanks so much for being on the show. Take us back, before real estate. How'd you get into it? What intrigued you about this business? What were you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I was good at math and science growing up. So people were like, you should be an engineer. Well, I went to Georgia Tech. I got a chemical engineering degree, but I learned I should not be an engineer. So I have not actually done that. I did consulting the first couple years out of college, but I flipped a few houses on the side, mainly because the barrier to entry, this is early 2000s, is just really low barrier to entry back then. Money was easy to borrow. People were trying it. And we made a little bit of money on those first couple houses, mainly just like I said, because the market was good. But my wife has always supported my entrepreneurial spirit. And I was like, I think I can make a living flipping houses. She gave me the green light. I quit a good consulting job, the only real job I've ever had. And that was 2003. And ever since then, been in real estate.
So kind of walk us through what that first year looked like. You were obviously a young guy. It was a good time to be in real estate. You decided you wanted to start flipping. What did that first and second year look like as you began to build that investment business?
Yeah, so we got off to a pretty good start with that. We bought a franchise, Home Investors. We buy ugly houses. So we bought a franchise of that. And when I say bought, we borrowed money that someone probably should not have loaned to us. But once again, back then you signed 100 pages of paper and hey, you own a franchise.
Classic 2003.
Exactly. Yes. My story is very classic, I think, pre-crash and then crash. And so we flipped about 150 houses while we had that franchise. I had two business partners that did it with me. And I got my real estate license to help us buy and sell our own houses. And so, when the market crashed, we did not see it coming. That business specifically, very leveraged, lots of fixed cost, only revenue was selling houses, the value of which all of a sudden was dropping off a cliff. And so that business failed, even though at that point we had gotten good at it. It just, we were in a really bad spot. And so then it was 2008 and economy's bad, job market's bad, haven't had a job in a long time. And I thought, well, basically all I know how to do is sell houses, because I had sold a lot of houses, but not for anybody else, just for ourselves. And I thought maybe somebody else will let me sell their house. And so that's how I moved into becoming a real estate agent full time. It was out of necessity of, I've got a ton of debt. The economy's bad. I've got to make something happen.
Wow. So I'm curious because, no one has a crystal ball. And I wouldn't say that we are in the type of economy that's going to create a crash. And yet there's a lot of people right now flipping homes. They're leveraging a lot, and that's great. Since you went through a massive crash, is there any words of wisdom that you share to those people listening that maybe are just like flipping stuff really, really fast, and maybe they don't have much experience, and what should they be looking for? What should they be careful about? What were some of the lessons that you learned going through that?
Yeah, I think, that business, and specifically, we did not lead with revenue in that business. We took on a lot of debt, and we scaled to a size that we honestly could only sustain if things went well. And I think that's one of the things to think about, right? Is if the market starts to turn, and let's sure hope it doesn't crash at any point, crash the way that it did then, but even if it starts to turn down, goes down a little bit, if you are really spread thin and really leveraged, you take that 10-20% drop across all the properties. I'll never forget when we realized, other people I'm sure had realized this before, but we were sitting at our conference table, we had 12 houses for sale, none under contract. And one of my business partners said, I think the market turned and we missed it. And we were like, yeah, and we're about to be in big trouble. Because 100% financed all those houses were 100% financed. And even if it goes down 10-15%, you're in trouble in that situation. And so, I think that'd be my biggest thing is, be careful just the total amount of leverage that you have. Now, yes, you leverage up when the market's going up, you're winning more, right? You're doing more, your ROI is higher, but I think you got to find that line of the risk versus the reward on it.
Yeah, that's some good points. So I'm curious, Justin, I talk to a lot of agents that get into the business and they want to flip houses. They want to invest in real estate. And I'm curious to know how your approach was different, or maybe your strategy getting into real estate and focusing on sales was different based on your knowledge and experience as an investor. Did that help you launch your business faster? Did that help you provide more value to your clients, presumably? What did that sort of look like with your past knowledge?
Yeah, it did. And especially at that time. So, I mean, is that those first years, 2008, 2009, that's when there started to be a lot of bank-owned properties, which I already had experience with. So I already knew about that. A lot of houses need fixed up that had been left and were vacant and were foreclosed. We had already fixed up tons of houses, so I knew all about that. I had great contractor connections. And so, yeah, I mean, that knowledge that I had gained from being in lots of houses that needed renovated and lots of bank-owned properties, I mean, for sure, especially in that market, was very, very helpful. And in any market, I think, if you're representing buyers and you can see the vision of what could happen in a property, things that, like, hey, I mean, anything could be done with the right amount of time and money, but things that are easier to do, relatively speaking. You have a good understanding of the cost of things, understanding of how permitting works. All that stuff was for sure helpful. And I've continued to flip houses and build some new construction houses, but it's been very much on the side, not leveraged. And the nice thing about not as highly leveraged, the nice thing about that is a real estate agent, it is great to have a couple projects going on the side. I mean, we do know a lot about the market. You do get an inside look. I mean, I like when people want to flip houses as their buy houses and invest in them. Like, it's a perk of being in the business. It's, we're on the inside of it. So I'm pro that in general. I just think back to be careful the amount that you take on at one time. I think it's probably my big lesson from that.
Yeah, watch your margins. Couldn't agree more. So take us into those first few years then. You've transitioned into real estate sales and things are going pretty well, it sounds like. Did you know where you were headed? Did you have a big vision in terms of, what you wanted to grow? Or were you just kind of figuring it out as you went?
Yeah, I mean, those first years when the market was down, it was just scrapping. I mean, I built my business. It was a relationship-based business. I mean, I was at Keller Williams, and I mean, the great teaching of how to build a relationship-based business. I mean, talk to 20 people a day and meet one person face to face. And I mean, that was basically my mantra for the first year. And even though then, I mean, I didn't have good scripts for those conversations. Those weren't listing appointments every day. It was just meet me face to face, like meet me for coffee, meet me for lunch. Well, I'll tell you what, if you meet 250 different people in a year, you're nice to them, you follow up and you make sure real estate comes up into the conversation. Even in 2009, I mean, some of them need help buying and selling houses. And I'm kind of joking about it, but it is as simple as that. I mean, you have coffee with a different person every day. You're nice, you follow up, you are going to sell some houses. And so in 2009, I think I sold 30 houses, which was a shockingly good year in a really heavily declining market. And that's when I was like, I like this. I mean, I'm pretty good at it. People were referring me to their friends. I brought in an intern that year. And the reason I bring that up, he was at Georgia Tech at the time, had his real estate license. We have worked together ever since. He's now the chief operating officer at the Justin Landis Group, one of my partners. But those early years, we just scrapped. I mean, we $20,000 foreclosure, we'd be there illegally turning the water on for a client at an inspection. We'd drive an hour outside the city to sell new construction. We sold an auto garage. I mean, anyone who would let us help them, it's like, yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, we'll do it. It was just really scrappy. There was no long-term vision at that point of building a business. It was just, let's do the best we can. These years are tough. And so we had good years, but I mean, yeah, it wasn't any long-term plan at that point.
So you mentioned really briefly there that one of your partners was with you like really early on. Started as an intern and now is chief operating officer, I believe you said.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me about how did the team kind of start to evolve, and how do you preserve a long-term business relationship like that? That's quite a few. I mean, what are we working on? Like 7, 8, 9 years now?
Yeah, he started working with me in 2009. So this is our 12th year together, I think.
That shows how good I am at math.
Other than my wife and my family, he's probably up there with like most hours spent together in our lives at this point. We spend a lot of time together. So this is one of the things that has worked so great at the Justin Landis Group is when we first started to bring other people on in 2014, there were 4 of us. There was Jared, who I mentioned, Ashton Ernst, who had come on the team that year as an agent. And then we had one person in operations, doing all our admin, Amanda. So there were 4 of us that year. Those 3 are still with me. The 4 of us are still together, even though the Justin Landis Group has 60 people in it now. And when you have that continuity, I mean, it's just a benefit. I mean, we've got a nucleus that they have all individually grown in their careers and their leadership and who they are as people. But you just know you can start the year. You're starting every single year with such a great spot. And so, I mean, we've obviously had some turnover over the years, but we've never lost a big book of business or the intellectual property that would leave with someone who's been in the organization a really long time, or the collective intelligence that, I mean, working on thousands of houses together now. And so that, I mean, that has been a huge key to our success is, we've been fortunate to have great people and fortunate to have long-term continuity in the organization, which just helps you wake up every year instead of like replacing people, going backwards, working to stay at ground level. We can look ahead because we've got ground level covered.
It takes so much energy to replace people. I just had the opportunity yesterday to co-teach with Kristen Cole a class that Keller Williams offers called Career Visioning, which is basically the process of identifying, hiring, and retaining talent in your organization. And so I'm curious to know, Justin, what do you attribute that success to in your business? What is it about you and your style and the business that has held on to such talented people for such a long amount of time?
Yeah, man, great question, and great classes too. So I mean, as far as like putting it into the organization, Recruit Select, which was the precursor to Career Visioning, I mean, I've probably taken that class a dozen times. We hired a consultant that worked with us for a couple of years to implement that Recruit Select into the organization. And so we do have a like built-in framework of like Recruit Select is the language of how and it's Recruit Select, train, lead, motivate, how we bring people in and then continue to grow them. But more specifically to the actual people, those first few people, honestly, it was luck that they were great people. I mean, at that point, there was no Recruit Select. It just happened to be those first couple of people were amazing people. As we have implemented Recruit Select, I do think it has allowed us to recruit and select people that are more likely to be a match. But a couple of things I'll say about long-term continuity. So Jared and Ashton have both become partners in the business. And so, I mean, that's aligned them with the success of the business. And so, I mean, that's been really great for us. And my general thinking with, folks in the organization is people want to grow. They want to grow personally and grow in their leadership, and they want to grow their income. And the growth of the organization, if it allows people to do that, I mean, a lot of people will stay and keep doing it, right? I mean, if your income's growing, your leadership's growing, in every year it's getting better. Some people will leave because it's the Justin Landis group and they want to do their own thing. And I can honestly like super resonate with that because that is like my nature and style. But not everyone is, not everyone cares about that. And so I think it's been great. we have a third partner. We've made partner in the organization. And so that has allowed us to align together. It's not just their sales business that's important, but it's also the business of the Justin Landis group that's important.
Go ahead.
I love how simply you just put that. I mean, you take a kind of a complex idea of finding and retaining talent, and you simplified it in that people want to grow. So if you can provide a platform for them to grow professionally and personally, and then of course financially, which allows them to contribute to the causes and to the things that are most important to them, why would they ever want to leave if they're growing and if they're in all of the different areas of their life that they love? So I love that framework of how simple it can be as leaders to really focus in on, do we know what our people want? Do we know what's next in their growth path, personally and professionally? Do we know what their financial goals are and why those are important to them? And then building a business and a vision that can accommodate all of that so they have no reason to leave.
So well said. Couldn't agree. I mean, I agree with you completely.
It's not magic, right? It's not like some
magic,
magical.
but it takes work. I mean, I think,
but it takes work
because each person is different. So that context works for everyone, but you have to take the time to individually know the person, because growth for one person might not be the same as growth for the other person. And so someone in the organization, I mean, at first it's me, but now, it's leadership level. Someone needs to know every person and know what makes them tick, know what they want to accomplish so that we can help them get there.
Isn't it fascinating how most things worth doing in life are usually simple? They're not necessarily easy.
Yes.
So, okay, I want to get into conversation. I mean, you start seeing some great success. You're building this team. You have some long-term people who eventually become partners. It seems like you're doing it the right way. You've gone through skinning your knee, and so you have this like track record of some failure that's teaching you how to become a better success. And then you start really, it sounds like, catching this vision of creating your own distinct organism, and that's what eventually became your brokerage. And I kind of want to get into this conversation around first what your organization is now, your brokerage, and how you distinctly set it up, because I believe you set it up as a benefit corporation.
That's true.
And so tell me a little bit about that path, that journey from like just from being a big team to becoming a brokerage, and the heart behind that change.
For sure. Yeah. So, I mean, when we first, where I'll start this story, we were not thinking that the end result would be a brokerage at that point, but a handful of years ago, I've always wanted to do good with the business. I mean, for one, we spend a lot of time working, and so we might as well do good and help people while we're working. And early on in my career, I was scared to take too strong a stance for any sort of cause or good, because I just had this fear of people like, hey, if you're giving away a lot of money, why don't you just lower your commission and let me give away the money, right? And if you take a stance on something, some people are repelled, right? I mean, some people are attracted, some people are repelled. And I was nervous to take a stance, but as we started to get more people in the organization who also wanted to make a difference, we got to the point where like, hey, we feel like we need to use the business for good in addition to for business. And so the first thing we did publicly that was, of any size, we did a 90 and 90. So we set out to have 90 buyers in 90 days. And through that, raised $90,000 to fight homelessness. Now, we were not on pace to do either of these. The 2 months before, we had only closed 17 buyers. Now, this was January and February, so there was some seasonality. We coming in March, April, May. But we're not on pace to sell 30 buyers a month. And we've never done any fundraising. So $90,000, I mean, no idea how easy or hard that would be. But we just set out to do it. And the way we did it, we went to our transaction partners, lender, attorney, home inspector, home warranty, natural gas, mover, insurance agent. And we're like, hey, on each of these transactions we do over the next 90 days, will you guys pitch in to fight homelessness? We are too. Our agents are going to do it. Got 100% yes to that. You would not believe some of the responses to that, how generous people were. And I'll get to some of my lessons on it. But what happened in those 90 days, 409 on the 90th day, I'm not making this up, we got our 90th buyer contract, hit the 90 buyer contract goal, and we raised over $90,000. We partnered with a local nonprofit, the Atlanta Mission, a homeless shelter and rehab facility here. They had the idea, hey, why don't we have a challenge campaign to challenge our donors to beat your $90,000 raise? That campaign raised $180,000 more dollars. Someone made a $100,000 anonymous donation in response to that. So in 90 days, $270,000 were raised to fight homelessness. We sold 90 houses, which is way more houses than we were on pace to sell. And the way the team pulled together to go after a bigger goal, a goal that had a bigger purpose, it was honestly, I mean, I'm getting chills just talking about it now. I mean, it was kind of magical, the way that all of that worked. And we ended that with a couple realizations of, one, purpose business is good business. Like, because we did this through business, we could do better business and we could help more people. We could do more good. And secondly, people want to help. They often just don't know how to do it. Because all the people we asked were so excited about it, pitched in to do it, and they wanted to do it. It was nice for people to be like, hey, you're taking care of, you vetted the organization, you're taking care of the logistics, you've got the plan. Sweet, like we're on board with it. And then thirdly, because we did it together, it could be a lot bigger. So no one individually made a humongous, the person who made the $100,000 anonymous donation made a big donation. Everyone else made small donations. But because we were doing it together, for example, that charity could have that challenge campaign. If you give $5,000, huge donation individually, they can't have a challenge campaign. But if you give $100,000, they can. And that's the power of doing it together. And so we did each year of the last 3 years, we did a 90-day campaign. to similar to that. And those raised about $800,000 in total over a 3-year period.
Wow.
Which we're super proud of, and is made it like that starts to be like money that like actually can make a difference. And we came into this year. So we've been at Keller Williams for the last 13 years, and KW has been awesome. And we came into this year with, hey, we want to take this purpose to a bigger level, to a bigger stage. We were originally thinking to do that through a nonprofit, kind of similar. I don't know, you guys Patagonia fans by any chance? The outdoor clothing company?
Sure.
I've got some Patagonia.
Done some hiking in my time.
So Patagonia started 1% for the planet, and where they give 1% of their revenue to environmental charities. And it's become, I mean, in the outdoor and organic food industries, like pretty commonplace. And so while Patagonia can give away a lot, all those companies can give away a ton when they do it together. And so we're like, maybe that would be the way in the real estate industry to unite the real estate industry. But as we dug into it, one of the things that, we kind of realized is the ability that Patagonia had to do that was partially because they are so successful and do so well as a company, and their company is mission-based. And so we started to look around in the real estate industry, and we're like, does this already exist? Is someone doing this? And I mean, at the local level, I'm sure there are people, but at the national level, I mean, there's not a Patagonia, Tom's, Clean Canteen, Ben & Jerry's, Thrive Coffee. I mean, there hasn't been someone that has done that. And we're obviously a long ways from, being at a national level and doing that. But we're like, hey, let's have a purpose-based business that is running a great business. We are doing best-in-class business, and we have a purpose. Then the purpose of our new brokerage, Bolst, is housing for everyone. And so, it's a brokerage that is for profit, but it is a benefit corporation. And benefit corporation, it's a new corporate classification in Georgia this year. It exists in other states, but Georgia, this was the first year you could do it. So technically speaking, it's run like a C Corp, has the same, taxation and same rules, but it has a public benefit. And the public benefit of Bolst is to fight homelessness, increase affordable housing, and increase home ownership in underserved communities.
So take us. I'm glad that you brought up B Corp, and I was already going to ask what it is. Can you tell us if it's set up just like a C Corp? I'm sure there's a lot of people wondering. Okay, so what's the benefit of structuring a business like that? So can you share that, some of the nuances?
So there's a benefit corporation, and then there is a certified B Corp. I'll hit those in just a second. But the big reason we wanted to be a benefit corporation is, what is typically the number one thing for a C Corp? It is to maximize shareholder value, right? That's like the top priority, is maximize shareholder value. And we do want to have great shareholder value, but we wanted to have written into the company that in addition to shareholder value, that we are serving this public benefit, so that if there ever gets to be a point down the line where there's a conflict there, that we don't immediately go to maximizing shareholder value, that we're holding true to our ideals of serving a public benefit in addition to having great shareholder value. So that's why we decided to do it. And then, so that's a benefit corporation, which is like an actual corporate, designation. Then there is certified B Corp. So certified B Corp is a third-party assessment. It's similar to like if you see something as fair trade or certified organic or whatever, where you take a assessment, and it basically is on like your social responsibility. How you're running your business, treating your employees, are you sustainable to the environment, all that sort of stuff. And so if you think about like, hey, well, what companies are certified B Corp? You start to look this up. It's a lot of the companies that you think are, probably certified B Corp. The ones that I named earlier, such as Clean Canteen and Patagonia and Thrive and Bombas and Tom's and those kind of companies. And so that you have to be in business for a year in order to be assessed. But we do plan to apply to become a certified B Corp, which we think will do two things. One, share that we're doing good, and two, it's an assessment that holds you to a certain standard. If we don't pass, you don't get it. And so, we feel like it'll help us hold ourselves, to a standard of business that we want to do.
So, Justin, I imagine to decide to structure your business this way moving forward, you obviously must be pretty confident with the results you've had in the progress. A few minutes ago, you mentioned when you were talking about how this concept originally sort of brought your team together, how you actually got the chills just even talking about it. So I'd love for you to just dive in a little deeper, the impact that you saw the initial vision having on your team members as a group and the way that it brought them together, this cause outside of real estate, or at least outside of the real estate business, and how that changed the team dynamic.
Yeah. So, I mean, for the folks who were on the team at that time, and y'all can probably resonate to this. A lot of the listeners can probably resonate. Once you get to a certain point of success in your career, for most people, the biggest thing at that point isn't like, hey, I put another 10 or 20% on my bottom line, or I sold another 20 houses this year. You get to a point where like, hey, I'm successful. I'm looking for something bigger and deeper. And to be able to have and a lot of people struggle with, hey, what is my big why? I mean, like, I know for a long time it was hard for me to answer that at Keller Williams. I talk about that a lot. And it's like, people have these great ones, and I feel like kind of like a, fraud, because it's like, I don't have one. I'm just working hard. I don't know what it is. And so if someone else has one, and this is a piece of advice I would give to people, because this is helpful for me, is if you don't know what your big why is or your purpose, attach on to somebody else who you can resonate with. It may not be perfect. It may not be exactly what you want, but if someone else, they're focused on that, and you're like, hey, I can get on board with that, do that with them. And then, as you get clarity down the line, you may decide to do something different. But I mean, that can help you kind of move in that direction. And so for a lot of our established agents, this brought a level of fulfillment in the business that just, wasn't there before. And then over time since then, one of the biggest ways I've seen this help from a recruit, agents coming into the Justin Landis group. I mean, I would say the most common thing I hear when I meet with people is, hey, I was reading about you guys and what you do. I want to be part of an organization that is doing good. It's amazing what you guys are doing. And so that's helpful in two ways. One, I mean, obviously it helps us recruit great people, but two, it helps make sure we bring in people who are the right fit, because there's a mission alignment there. The fact that they care about it and we care about it makes us more likely to be a fit working together. And so, I mean, I think those are kind of the things that have really been like the end result of having a higher purpose in the business is, I mean, fulfillment for people that have reached a certain level of success, and, helping bring in the right talent that is in alignment with the mission you have.
So this idea of, and I don't know who coined this, but social entrepreneurship, I've heard Mark Cuban use that term before, whoever coined it, it's a relatively new idea from the standpoint that, I mean, you said like B Corp it's a newer designation. Some states don't even have it yet. And I think there's a lot of hurdles. There's a lot of different perspectives on this idea. I'm interested in your comments and thoughts around like how you do this well, because I think there's some people who look at Tom's and immediately are like, oh, I'm going to be Tom's because Tom's has great success. And so I'm going to go attach myself to something and I'll have great success. What do you have to say to the person who wants to potentially go in this direction about some of the pitfalls that need to be avoided?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. I think one of the most important things is you have to have a great business. I mean, to have the business itself being good, running well, providing value. I mean, I think that is like the core of it all. And that is what gives you the ability to do good, to have that social entrepreneurship, is that, hey, we are running, whether or not there was a cause or a mission, you want people to look at it and be like, this brokerage is really well run. I mean, they are making things frictionless for their agents. It's easy here. The tech works. The training is great. The broker is available and answering questions. Now, none of that has to do with the actual like mission and purpose of the business, but you got to do all of that stuff great, because I believe that's what gives you the ability to then go do the good that you want to do. And so, I mean, that's one of the things we feel like we've done that well at the Justin Landis Group, and we were really focused on doing that at Bolst. I mean, if Bolst is going to be successful and work towards providing housing for everyone, it's going to need to be a really great brokerage where the things that I mentioned are just done at the highest level, or we're not going to be able to achieve the purpose and the social entrepreneurship that we want.
So if I were to distill that down, I mean, would it be too simplistic to say, if you desire to do good with your business, focus first on developing a great business, not so much the social aspect?
Business, have a good business. Yeah, I like it. That was you. I mean, yes, I'm a talker, so I just filled up like 3 minutes.
Hey, you talk all you want. It's our job to try and distill it down. No. I mean, so I have a great business. Anything else that should be, considered? I mean, I imagine you're obviously passionate about this housing for all concept. It's not just something you picked out of thin air because it related to real estate, right?
Yeah. I mean, I do think that having clarity of the good that you're trying to do, like knowing what you want to do, and you may not know how, because I mean, one thing that, I'm a believer in is you stay really focused on your mission, but flexible on how you accomplish it, right? Because things change, and housing for all may look different 20 years than it does today. And so you may not be doing the exact same thing, but I think having clarity and focus on the mission is really important for then, hey, I've got a good business, I want to do good with it. To actually execute it, it's having good focus on it, because that will allow you to, actually start to accomplish what you want to accomplish in your mission.
I like to say that you should hold the why with a closed fist and you hold the how with an open hand. And that allows you to really accomplish what you're saying there. And I think that's incredibly important, whether it's on this topic or any topic in life, really. I think that's just general life wisdom.
Yeah. Justin, you mentioned how this philanthropy that you started getting into obviously led to not only more fulfillment, but actually to attracting more people to your business, which obviously allows you to grow an even more successful business, allowing you to donate more money. And so it's obviously this cycle that continues. What do you say to all the other business owners out there that are maybe thinking, I'm on the fence about this concept? How would you, can you directly associate this philanthropy with more and better results on the business side, in addition to the fulfillment for yourself and for your team?
Yeah, I mean, so I haven't done any I don't have a study done or a paper published to show that this is true. But I think
I would think as a chemical engineer you would.
Yeah, seriously. When this is an aside, but when I told my advisor in chemical engineering I was not going into chemical engineering, he said, I think that's a good choice. And I didn't answer a follow-up question to know, did he mean that from the standpoint of you would have been a bad engineer, or you have talents that would be better used elsewhere? I'm not sure which side of it's on. But one thing, from the back to the talent side, you're like, hey, brings in great people who do great results. So, I mean, there have been studies done on what top talent wants. And so the top 3 things talent wants is bigger vision, brighter future, better boss. And so if you have that bigger vision, top talent wants that more than average talent. And so, I mean, I think that has been proven for folks that, hey, you want really high caliber people to be here. High caliber people, they often really want something, bigger to go after.
Right. A lot of what we're talking about reminds me of Simon Sinek and the concept of this infinite game in business and the opportunities we can provide for our people. Would you consider yourself to be a student of leadership, or is this something that's kind of come naturally to you? I mean, you obviously have a lot of really forward-thinking ideas. I'm just wondering how you've been able to kind of gather all these concepts and actually put them into action in a productive way.
I'm definitely a learner and reader and go to classes. I typically, and I think to give credit where credit's due, I think I got this from Gary Keller. I've been picking topics where I will just read a lot about the topic to try to get to a level of, competency, I guess you would say, on it. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm always absorbing information and then, trying to put it into practice. And another thing on that, putting it into practice, I think this goes for anyone in real estate. This is a business, a lot of businesses do, but this is a business that favors people who are proactive, right? I mean, things don't, I mean, things can come in once your business is established enough, but it just favors people who are doers and will try things. We've tried a lot of things. Now, a lot of them have failed. I mean, I'm sharing here on this podcast some of the things that have gone well, but man, it'd be a long list of things that have not gone well. But if you try enough things and you pivot on them quickly, you find the ones that hit, and then you can keep going. So, I mean, it's an ever evolving. I mean, I am not a leadership expert, haven't gotten any certifications, taken any higher level education, but I mean, I'm always trying to be better. The reason to do something just because that's the way we've always done it, there's a better way to do it. Let's do it better.
That's awesome. Well, this is a really interesting topic, and I want to transition us into the last segment of our show, and yet I feel like we could probably go deeper and deeper and deeper into the nuts and bolts of this. And so when you're listening to this, if that's something you want, you let us know. We'll bring Justin back. We'll do a whole series on this. But let's transition in the last segment of our show. We call it 3, 2, 1 action. It's the same 3 questions we ask every single guest. Is your seat warming up?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right.
Question number 1, who is the one person who has had the biggest impact on your business and why?
Yeah, Joe Arroyo, who was my first coach. He was coach at MAPS originally, and then continued to coach me. Man, I mean, just challenged me on how business can be done. A couple of specific things. I mean, one asked, I was like, hey, I want a boutique business. He's like, what is good about boutique? I'm like, well, it's really high quality. He's like, could a big business be high quality? I'm like, yeah. Then he's like, well, could your business be big and be high quality? Yes. I mean, things like that have just changed the dynamic of how I think and how business is done. Joe's been a huge impact on me.
It's amazing how one simple question like that from a really good coach can totally change somebody's mindset and ultimate trajectory for themselves and their business.
It can. Right when we first started coaching, he challenged me to take one day off. I hadn't taken a day off. Like, I skimmed through those first years in the business. I mean, we were working hard. I was working all the time. He challenged me to literally take one day off. Planned to take a Sunday off, got multiple offers on a listing on Saturday, failed. And in that coaching class, like, is this how you want to live the rest of your life? You can't take a day off. I'm like, no, I don't want to live the rest of my life like this. He's like, you ready to make a change? I said, yeah, let's make a change. And so, yeah, I mean, like, that one thing like that can change the whole path of how someone operates.
That's awesome. Question number 2, what's the most influential book in your business and why?
I mean, this one goes way back because this is what planted the seed of what's led to Bolst is Let My People Go Surfing. Founder of Patagonia wrote that book. And the reason it's called that, Patagonia, they have the surf conditions behind the receptionist in Ventura Beach. And if the surf conditions are good, you get to go surfing. And so, I mean, that book, just thinking about how they incorporated good into their business and, from the standpoint of trying to save the planet, just really fueled for me, what could this be in the real estate industry? And so that's a book that just had a big impact on me.
So it's called Let My People Go Surfing.
Let My People Go Surfing. Yeah.
We should adopt that, David, but we can't surf in Arizona.
That's true.
So we're fill in the blank.
Let my people
Let
go.
my people go golfing, right? Is that what
golfing? Okay. I was going to say into the desert.
Perfect. Golfing. I like where your head's at. All right, Justin, third and final question. As you know, this is the All In Podcast where we encourage our listeners to take this information that they've heard today and to do something with it. And so what advice, what action item can our listeners go take right now today to start moving the needle forward in their business?
I mean, I think because we've been talking about purpose, I'll stick this on the purpose piece of it is find something that you can do to do good and take action on it. I mean, just pick something. It doesn't have to be the perfect thing. Just today, I mean, if you're listening to this, whatever comes to your mind, like, hey, I can make an impact in someone's life by making this donation, by serving here, by saying hello to someone, whatever it is, pick it in your mind and just say, hey, I'm going to do it, and then actually do it. Take that first step. Could be the first of many.
That resonates with me, at a high level. I was challenged really early in life to never get caught into this idea of thinking that when I got to a certain place in my life, income level, whatever, that then I would be ready to do good. And I think a lot of people sometimes think that, and you just hit on, we can do good in a myriad of ways right now. And so, yeah, I hope a lot of our listeners, I trust a lot of our listeners will go take action on that thing. Justin, obviously, hearing your story, seeing your success is really amazing. You're doing awesome things, and I know a lot of our listeners are going to want to connect with you. What's the best place for someone to get connected with Justin?
Yeah, you can find Bolst on Instagram at Bolst Real Estate. If you want to follow me, it's at Justin L. Landis on Instagram as well. And yeah, we would love to engage with you there.
Awesome. Well, this has been a great show. Anything else, partner?
I think that was it. That was a lot of good information packed in there.
Yeah, that was awesome. Justin, thanks so much for spending some time with us. Listeners, thank you so much for being here each and every Tuesday as we release brand new episodes, value-packed content for you. If you haven't left a rating and review, you know that is right after you do good. I want that to be your second action item. Go into Apple, leave us a rating and review. That's how we can continue to bring you great guests and great information week after week. And as always, go play all in.
And that's a wrap. Well done, sir.
Man, you guys are great hosts. Y'all have done this before. You guys are good.
Thanks. We're getting better and we're growing every day. So
yeah, and I love that today's topic was really focused around something we haven't spent a lot of time on, right? Not only the B Corp itself, but just the concept behind it. So I really think this is a super impactful episode right now. Really good timing.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, you did great.
Glad to bring something a little different to it.
It's awesome.
We got big dreams of what can happen. I mean, we're in week 1. This is day 5, so got a few steps left to take, but we've taken.
This is day 5.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I mean, we transferred everyone's licenses over on Monday. And so, I mean, this is the very, very beginning. Didn't get into the details of the brokerage on that, but had one other person who founded this with us and their team, have another team coming over next week. And so, we have not done recruiting on the brokerage side. So that's obviously different than the agent side. But I mean, we would love to have people come join us in this mission together, and hopefully they will.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, Justin. So you're in Atlanta now, and are you looking into more metros in the future? Do you have key cities that you want to go to, or what? What's that? Or you just want to stay in your lane, conquer Atlanta?
We'd absolutely, back to like the bigger, can it be good and big? I mean, I want this to be as big as it can and still be great. I mean, I think growth for just the sake of growth can get you in trouble, but if it can still be great, I mean, why not impact more people and have more people that you get to do great things with? So, yeah, I mean, we definitely hope to grow this outside of Atlanta. Atlanta is a big metro area, so from a starting standpoint, like it can get to a pretty good size here. It's actually why, like at the Justin Landis Group, we haven't expanded outside the cities because we've had really consistent growth here, and the market is so big that we haven't been forced to. Like Kristen, for example, not the same as being in Alaska and like, hey, there's no more houses to sell. There's a lot of houses here to sell. And so, yeah, hopefully we get it to the point where we grow it to Atlanta and it makes sense to expand it from there.
Awesome. Well, we'll let you go. I really appreciate your time. Thanks so much. And we'll stay connected.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And somebody will send over the link and info and all that sort of stuff.
Yep, everything will get sent out. I think it's Tuesday. We could be a week ahead. I can't remember. But yeah, you'll get that in the email that's attached to the Zoom link. So we have your headshot, everything else. So you'll get all that collateral.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. Enjoy your
Thanks a lot, Justin.
weekend.
Have a good day.
See you later.
Bye.
We haven't done this right. It seems it's been a little inconsistent being in the studio together. Yeah, we drive well. intro. What are we listening for? I think I have something.
Hey, All In listeners, on today's episode, you're going to hear from Justin Landis of the Justin Landis Group and the CEO of the newly formed brokerage, Bolst. Bolst is a company doing amazing things, and it's all a result of Justin and his team's vision to have a business with purpose. Hey, as our listeners get introduced to Justin, what should they be listening for today, Joe?
Yeah, throughout the episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of cool things, and what I want you to be listening for is what actually fulfills people and propels them forward in their business. A few weeks ago, David, you and I had a conversation about the human needs, and you're going to hear a lot of those same terms and concepts being brought up today in a different context. So try to draw those correlations and really find out what's driving your behavior, and also how can you better drive the behavior of the people around you on your team and in your world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Listen for that and more right after a word from one of our sponsors.
All right, and outro. Let's see, one or two big takeaways.
I like the 3 quick things that he shot out about what talent wants.
I like fear and taking a stance. I thought that was a cool thing to say.
Yeah. Perfect.
All right, let's rock and roll.
So Justin's doing a lot of amazing things, and I really hope that it made our listeners think about how they can be incorporating similar passions and purpose in their vision. What's one of your biggest takeaways?
He said something that really stuck with me, and I wrote it down. He said that he had some fear around taking a stance around any one cause or any one issue, and I thought that was a really important thing to bring back up, because even myself at times has maybe wanted to highlight something or do something, and I've thought about, well, what might be the perception of this? And I talked about Simon Sinek in the episode, so I'm going to bring him back up again. He said the goal of business is not to do business with everybody. It's to do business with people who want to go where you're going. And so I think about what Justin said about taking a stance, and when he finally found his cause, right, which happens to be affordable housing for all people, how that's going to naturally start drawing people to him. Now, it may repel some people. There may be some people who don't love that cause. But the purpose is not for everybody to join your team. The purpose is for the right people to join your team. And so by having a clearly defined stance allows those people to find you, and it makes it really easy to decide who's a good cultural fit here.
Because then it makes your team that much tighter, because like he said, now they're already bought into the mission. That's what they want to do as well. And so, I couldn't say it any better myself. That's exactly what I think people should be taking away from this episode. Moving from scarcity to abundance in this idea of taking a stand on what's most important to you and those people that are in your world. So, yeah, lots of good things to think about for business owners.
Just to piggyback off that, the fulfillment part that comes from the contribution, which we really dove into in the episode a few weeks ago, and that's what it sounds like Justin's really been able to create for himself and for his team members, is the ability to feel fulfilled not only in their work, but in their philanthropy in a really powerful way, which obviously causes people to want to continue to work harder because the result is more fulfillment.
100%. Guys, you know where to find Joe and I. If you ever have questions, thoughts on an episode, reach out to us. We'd love it if you have an idea for a guest. Also, shoot that name over to us. We'll get them on the show. And like I always say, go play All In.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the All In Podcast. We want to invite you to find all of today's resources from our show page at aipodcast.co. We also ask that you take just 1 minute to leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. This is how we grow and how we're able to bring you the best content each and every week. Now go play All In.